Thank you once again for joining to everyone. Uh, Quick agenda. Introduce myself for those who don't know me. I recognize some familiar names, so some of you might already know who I am. Quick intro. We're going to sort of define what we mean by rollbacks in the first place, exactly, and why it matters. Why you might be interested in using rollbacks alongside normal hotfixes, and then a walkthrough of the platform. Show you what it looks like, how it works, all the automation behind the scenes, and I'll do my best to save some time for Q&A. This is our first Rollbacks dedicated webinar, and we have a 30-minute window here, so I'll try to get the timing right so there's time for questions, but also please drop questions in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye over there, and we can answer questions as we go. So definitely don't need to save questions to the end. So quick intro. I'm Gabriel, for those who don't know me, one of the founders of Runway, and a former iOS engineer. That's true of a lot of our team. Mobile engineers, we've lived this experience on a lot of different teams. We've certainly lived the pain of shipping critical issues to prod and needing to react quickly. And so a lot of that and some inspiration from teams we work with led us to build this rollbacks feature. When we talk about a rollback, just to get on the same page, what we mean is a resigned version of a previous live stable build. And ideally, you prepare that, you get it ready to go as advanced in the process as possible, perhaps even approved by Apple, and have that rollback sitting there. So if there is a critical issue in prod, you can ship that last stable version with zero delay. There's no triaging the issue. There's no spending time fixing, creating a new build, obviously submitting for review. You get just about instant resolution, which can be super valuable. You might be wondering why. My team is pretty good and quick at shipping hotfixes. Maybe you use feature flags extensively, so you could just flag stuff off. In our experience, as good as you are at hotfixes, as much as you have flagged off, or flagged, I should say, in your app, as good and solid as your QA is, your team is going to run into issues in prod that cannot be remedied that easily. And it could be impacting the business in a really significant way. It can, of course, mean lost revenue. It can also mean really upset users and unhappy users that very often don't come back. Churn in mobile is pretty tricky. So giving teams an even quicker response in those most severe scenarios can be hugely valuable. Now, why don't all teams do this? It actually takes a lot of work just to have this in your back pocket. If you want to prepare rollbacks each and every release, you need to obviously grab your previous build, get that rebuilt, re-signed with an incremented build number, new version number. Ideally, if you want this as fast as possible, you're queuing that build up, getting it ready to go, even submitted for review after you release the previous version. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of dependencies. And doing that for every release, if you're releasing, like many teams we work with, weekly, bi-weekly, takes a lot of work for something that you're only going to maybe use once in a while, but with big impact. So it can be hard to do the mental math and make it worth it. And so we want to allow teams to not have to make the choice. No extra work on your part. You get rollbacks in your back pocket for when you need them. And we do all the busy work creating them and also cleaning up after them, which is important. If you have a rollback sitting there, it's going to be blocking your next release. So you need that sort of cleaned up when you're confident in the previous release that you just shipped. So that's some of the motivation. Let's take a look at how it works in Runway. Describing quickly the current state we're in. This is an app that we kind of dog food with. It's a real app, live data here. We just recently shipped this 3.112 version. So you can see there's a phased release in progress. I think we're on day 1 still. Yep. It's actually looking pretty healthy, which is impressive. We're at hundreds for crash-free rates, and our metrics from product analytics look good here. So far we're in good shape. that could easily change. So let's take a quick look at this normal releases rollout in detail. Scroll down here. In the automation section, which some of you, again, might already be familiar with, we have our rollout automations. So for halting unhealthy rollouts or accelerating healthy ones, there's a third column here, which is new. This is showing you the status of rollbacks, rollback releases that you've turned on. There's a few steps here. We have an automation turned on here. We'll talk about, there's a manual entry point as well for rollbacks if you want to do things that way. But here we have the automation turned on, and from the perspective of this 3.112 release, which is new, we are in a nice, safe, and secure position. We have a rollback release built, submitted for review, and approved by Apple, and it's just sitting there in App Store Connect, ready to go. You can see there's an action to deploy that rollback if you need to, and some other actions, of course, that you can use to action different things during your rollout. So how did this get here? That prepared rollback that's just sitting there ready to go. Let's take a look at where that comes from, what that process looks like. Click into the rollback release in the timeline there. Excuse me. This is what a rollback release in Runway looks like. You're probably familiar with Runway's release timeline. You'll see that it's simplified on the left there. This is a very lightweight, special kind of release that, again, is happening largely in the background. You won't even see it for the first part of this whole process of preparing the rollback alongside each release. But it turns out that as soon as that previous release we were looking at was created, that 3.112 release, Runway was getting into gear to prep this rollback. What that means is, I think actually at submit time for the previous release, we will take the previous healthy build. So that would be the 3.111 version. We take that build that was actually released as part of that version. We re-sign that build in order to bump the build number and increment the version on that bundle. We will also upload that build. So you can see there's actually a sequence of automations here on the rollback build. The re-signing, uploading artifacts. We can apply tester notes to the build to let folks know that this is a rollback build. So if folks see it in test flight or in play console, they'll understand what's up. And of course, the allocation files, normal Runway automation we can upload as well. So that's the initial sequence. In the background, Runway's preparing the rollback build. At this point in the cycle, there's nothing more that Runway can do with the rollback build because you still have the 3.112 release being worked on and occupying the sort of active version slot in App Store Connect or Play Console. So Runway sits here and it waits, and it knows when it can proceed. And that happens over here. I should also call out, you can see the source version. So yeah, we were talking about 3.111. You see that down there. You can also see some information about it, how it fared in the wild, which again, in this case was quite stable, and the original build number as well. You have the opportunity to edit screenshots and metadata like you would on a normal release. Otherwise, they get copied over. And the sequence picks up as soon as it's able to with the submission step. And so I'll hop over to the automation tab here again. What Runway does, as soon as it's able, which is basically when that previous version, 3.112, vacates the sort of edit version spot in the store. So you release that previous version. Runway kicks into gear again. It'll stage the new version in App Store Connect. And then also immediately submit the rollback build for review. This saves that extra hour, or for some teams, day, waiting for review by Apple. And some of the recurring automations here that make this all work. Of course, so selecting the build, that kind of thing. So at this point, we've created the rollback. It is selected, submitted for review. In this case, we've already been approved. I think it took about an hour. It's pretty quick. And it's ready to go and just awaiting a manual release. You will notice the phase rollout there setting, no matter what your default is on your app in Runway. Most teams are using, phased rollouts. Here, your rollback by default will go out to 100% of users. That's kind of the point. If you have to use it, you want it to, cover the whole user base. So this is the rollback release sitting here ready. And if we go back to here, and I've taken us to the wrong release. If we go back to the rollout view for the release we previously shipped, again, you're going to see the rollback prepared here like we saw before. It's ready to go. You have that action to deploy it. If you need to, one click, rollback is out, and you're good. Most of the time, you won't have to use the rollback build. And like I mentioned briefly at the beginning, if you're having to do this whole process manually, that presents another annoying bit of cleanup work because you need to go in, change the version away from it in the store, developer reject it first, of course, on the Apple side, change the version, go clean it up, and proceed. So Runway can do the cleanup for you as well. There's some settings attached to the rollback automation. One is an option to submit. Some teams don't want to immediately submit and sort of go all the way through the process as far as it can go. So you can turn that off if you want. And then there's some conditions under which Runway will automatically discard the rollback version. You can have us discard the rollback when you reach a certain day of your phased rollout on the regularly scheduled release, or when you reach a certain adoption percentage. So some choices there. You can also tie discarding to health metrics. So you can choose from any of the health metrics that you have configured on releases, and only discard if any health metrics you add are in good shape. And that's just an extra safeguard. So if you have a version that's actually not faring so well health-wise, you can avoid the automatic discard, and the team will decide manually if you're okay and good to discard that rollback. So the end-to-end process, if you turn on this automation, again, in the background from start to finish, all the actions that you need to do to have a rollback in your back pocket, they get done automatically for you. And then just to show you quickly, there is, like I mentioned, a manual entry point. So you can, at any point, manually spin up a rollback. When you do that, of course, you're losing a bit of the efficiency of getting everything ready to go in the background. But it is another still quick way to spin up a hotfix. If you need more time to fully triage maybe an issue, you can get a stable version out in advance as well. I want to call out for our Android friends. Things look very similar. This has been very focused on iOS. Things look very similar. Where the Android side stops is on uploading the rollback build to the Play console. So it goes as far as that. As some of you will know, because we talk about this sometimes, some API limitations on the Play console side, which hopefully one day will be overcome, that prevent us from sort of submitting preemptively for review. And of course, the review times on the Google side are varying widely across teams these days too in the process there. So, but otherwise, same deal on Android, like everything really we do in Runway. I said I was going to check for questions. I did check for one just now from Ravi. Yeah, recordings, those will get sent out to everyone automatically afterwards. So you will have that on hand, and we'll probably be posting that as well. That's really the gist of the new feature in Runway. Happy to answer more questions if folks have it. couple extra call outs at the end here. Currently for the re-signing, we require a signing key to re-sign your builds. A lot that goes on there security-wise that we can speak to. We're also working on an alternative way to run this process where instead of re-signing, Runway will actually just use CI and trigger a new build with the bumped version and a new build number. So that will be another option for folks that want to avoid the re-signing. We've also been asked for the option to fully automate end-to-end, even the release. Could be a little extreme. Typically, teams might want to manually triage and kind of determine if it's a situation where they do want to release a rollback versus ship a hotfix. But the ask has come up. So potentially, just like Runway's rollout automations, which we saw briefly, that are sort of governed by the health of your rollout, potentially even automatically shipping your rollback if health is in a really bad way. So that is on the radar as well. Other questions, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, that's really all there is to it. And we did okay on the time window here. Cool. Well, thank you to everyone for joining. Feel free to drop off. Feel free to reach out with questions if you want a demo for your team or want to dig in more detail. Shoot us an email. Happy to hop on with you and dig in deeper on this or any other part of the platform. Otherwise, thanks for joining. We'll probably be doing more of these more bite-sized webinars. We started before with the whole platform typically. So we'll do some more of these and would love to see you at the next one. Thanks so much.